Hello there, and first of all, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and however you're celebrating this festive period, I do hope you have a lovely holiday and you can get some time off work. But yesterday I opened the final day, day 24 on the Lego Star Wars Advent, and today we'll be taking a look at the Advent as a sort of set review, going through it. There are 5 days that honestly, it's one of the best advents, but 5 days didn't quite make up the standard that the rest of the days laid out. So we'll be fixing all 5 of them days, especially that Endor Imperial bunker, which wasn't the best. And also then taking a look at my predictions for 2024, obviously 25 years of Lego Star Wars, 25 years of Phantom Menace. So you can bet there's a few older designs and especially prequel focus builds, but stay tuned to the end of the video for that. First up, let's have a look at all 24 days. And as you can see here, we have all 24 builds, which may at first look a bit confusing because if you count up how many individual piles we have, you'll notice that there are only 20 builds here. But how does that work if we've got 24 days? Well, you can see Palpatine, for instance, has a throne and the Ewok has a glider. The clone has a little command station, which honestly does look really cool. Very similar to the battle pack, which will compare both that and the STAP with the droid. And Omega does have a sled, but that was actually part of day one. So I think we'll look at this one first, and I'll just go over my thoughts quickly on each day. I have opened these up as short, so I'm not going to go too much over the build, just more so what I think of it. And honestly, getting Omega and a sled in one day is really nice. It would have been great to have seen it for Palpatine, the Clone Trooper, and the other two. But it's great because it gives us a build with the minifigure and doesn't take up 2 days. So we got to see an extra build in this sled. And again, with the others, perhaps the clone and droid were a bit more substantial builds, but especially with the throne and the glider, if we could have got 2 more builds out of this advent, that would have been really cool. Perhaps like a second Death Star and even another Clone Wars build. But you can see this is the same Omega minifigure, exactly the one that came in the Justifier arm printing and all. I have previously made a custom Omega, and this is definitely a better looking minifigure than that one. So I'm very happy I've got Omega. It completes the Bad Batch, similar to last year in the Marvel Advent when we got all the Guardians, which I did pick over Star Wars, but this year day one was a great start. And to pair up nicely with that day two, we then actually got the Justifier itself. I don't think I recognised this straight away, and it weren't until it was actually built in my hands that I noticed this was Cad Bane's personal ship. But of course, this is the set that Omega came in, so it's nice that it's paired up, and I quite like having the paired up ships and vehicles with minifigures or another build itself, because it just makes it a bit more substantial to the advent rather than getting just a one-off. And like if we just got the Justifier and Mando's N1, which is the next day, it just would have seemed really weird and not really fit with any of the other builds. So I'm happy we got this to go with Omega, and of course we did get the sled day one. Started off amazing, especially with all the pieces between them, and then day three gave us this little micro N1, of course Mando's N1 microfighter, which is, well, smaller than a microfighter. It's a extra microfighter, I guess, but it's really cool. There's quite a bit of detail on it for the size, and my favorite thing is these end bits of the wing here are the, in fact, exact ones used on the microfighter, which means if you didn't have the microfighter and like me tried to piece it out, and in fact I not only pieced it out but also mocked it out, so you do get a spare one in the advent, and you can take the other one, put it on your N1, and it's quite a rare piece. I don't think it's come on many sets. It's not exclusive to the Microfighter by any means, but it is quite a rare piece, so it's nice for me to finally complete this Microfighter. You can actually see I have taken one of the blasters off, but without that it is now complete. And yeah, the piece usage for a lot of these builds was amazing, but I especially liked that on the N1. That's something that personally I really enjoyed. And of course, with Mando's N1, we got a pit droid. We did get a pit droid 2 years ago. I don't know if we got a pit droid last year. I think we might have, but we've got quite a few pit droids here, and Though I haven't got the arms for the pit droids, I do still have the pit droids at hand. I don't really remember what happened to the arms. Perhaps I needed them for something. So I've got 2 pit droids here. I'd love to see another pit droid next year. It's sort of becoming the new Gonk, where we see, obviously, we've still got the Gonk in shows like The Bad Batch. We've got Gonky, but the pit droid does show up quite a bit in Mando and a few of the newer shows. So if we could get a pit droid and a Gonk every year and make them Christmassy themed like this Santa here, that'd be really cool. I am really liking the Gonks, especially this year. We did get another Christmassy one that's yet to come, but I can't wait to see what pit droid they add next year, and fingers crossed it's another Christmassy build. Now, as you can see, the Advent did come along in 2s. We got Omega and the Justifier for the Bad Batch. We then got an N1 and pit droid for Mando, and we did get a few days of Clone Wars builds. Now, the first day isn't too impressive. We've had a turbo tank before, and for a ship that doesn't really show up too much, it would have been nicer to have got something we're a bit more familiar with, especially with a few of the Clone Wars sets that come out this year. But I'm going to put this to the side because this is going to be one of the builds that I want to update in a minute. But the next 4 days were truly amazing. You can see the command post and the STAP. Personally, this is my favourite STAP, though the command post in the new battle pack does look pretty cool, both of which from the early battle packs we got with clones and droids. And I don't think it was a command post we got, I think it was a little bunker we got in the battle pack. So let's take a look and compare them real quick. Indeed, it is a little post, more of a weapons rack in the new battle pack than a command post. So I would have much preferred this command post to show up in the new battle pack. You can see there are usually 2 clips for weapons there, and of course you've got the shields, but as the battle pack is yet to come out, this is just my little mocked version, and this command station does look really cool. It does technically have these little ramps at the side that you can put up for when it's transporting whoever's on board, but it's a great little build. And the STAP from the Advent is a bit more size accurate to the one we actually get in Universe, though I definitely prefer the stand of the new battle pack. I'll probably go over this comparison again when I look at the new battle pack, but I definitely like the size of the Advent one, and it's a bit of a shame that they've tried to enlarge it for the set, but I guess it does use a few less pieces, a lot bigger pieces at that, and also just looks a bit more sleeker than this Advent one. But hopefully that's not the last of the STAPs we see, because there's always new pieces, and I'm sure there's always ways that they can just build it a bit better. Of course, they did both come with minifigures the next day, which is an amazing idea, especially as the minifigures can actually fit on both the models. 2/12 and a droid, it's a great choice of minifigures. And once again, mentioning that new battle pack, I think we all know which clone and droid we're hoping for in next year's Advent. This Hailfire droid is also a nice addition. It's a great use of pieces, and it's a nice compact model that, though it does only use a few pieces, doesn't seem that small, unlike the next day we got the AAT. And I'm afraid it's a great build. It's a very small build and does use a lot of pieces for how small it is, but this is another one of the builds that I'll be upgrading in a minute. We then get our next Christmassy character, the Gonk droid. So technically, we did get 4 in this Advent. We got the Santa Pit droid, the Reindeer Gonk, and Palpatine and the Ewok. Though this Reindeer Gonk is a nice addition. It's got a little tail at the back, which is a fun little detail they didn't need to add. But just goes to show they do put quite a bit of thought into these Christmassy characters, and I'm a big fan of the Pit droids and Gonks. Now, the next build we got, obviously, Clone Wars was 20 this year based on, I think technically it was its 21st. It's 21 years since Attack of the Clones come out. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. But we also celebrated 40 years of Return of the Jedi and got this Imperial Shuttle Tidarium class ship, which does look really cool. There's a few good pieces there, mostly slopes, and we also have got, of course, the engines at the back, the gunners, and a sloped cockpit that doesn't have a big gaping hole in the middle. If you remember the last set we got, you'll know what that is a reference to. There are a few things wrong with that set, but there is nothing wrong with this build. I really like how it's built, and again, big pieces which don't add to the piece count, but just add to the size and make it just feel a bit more when you've built it. And the next day we got one of the best minifigures in this set because it's actually a more or less complete Leia from the Endor Speeder set. The only difference is she doesn't come with her helmet, though I'm sure many people like myself will be trying to buy that helmet once they've opened this calendar. Of course, we also get Luke in the annual for 2024. He also doesn't come with his helmet, but it's nice to be getting both these figures for quite cheap, and even the Scout Trooper, which I know usually is in a few cheaper sets. I think he was in a £30 4 plus set, but he come out in the magazine for like £3-4. So it's nice to get all the minifigures, and in the new year I definitely will still be building the Endor Speeder diorama. I know I hope to get it done in the run up to Christmas, but I've had so much other things that I've worked on that have got in the way. I've got a bit distracted, so come hopefully by the end of January you'll be able to see my diorama. Whilst we're on Return of the Jedi, which actually runs out the rest of this advent, we got a lovely little Ewok village, and I thought for sure this would be where the Ewok was, but the Ewok was actually left till last because what we got to go against the Ewok village was this Imperial bunker, and this is definitely the most disappointing build we had in this whole advent calendar. In fact, not a lot of them have been anywhere near bad. I can't really think of much to complain about except for they're a bit too small, and this just piece count was not used too well. It just doesn't feel really like anything. It doesn't resemble the bunker too much because the bunker is of course square, at least the part that sticks out of the mountain, and even if they just added a little scene to try and build it up, just a few trees behind it or just something, it just really wasn't done too well. And you might think differently, so let me know in the comments, but I just think this is one of the worst advent builds we've got to date, which honestly says more about the advents of the past than it does this one, but I'm just not a fan of it, and this inspired me to make a few changes to the advent, so that will go to our poll on the left. But one that honestly Darth Maul fans are going to love, just this advent in general, this and the next one, uses that new Darth Maul lightsaber hilt because I don't really know what else to call it. It's a bit longer than the average hilt and great use of pieces, does look like a speeder, and though it doesn't really hold up to scale with the rest of them, which I will be talking about in a second, the handlebars look cool. It's got the little bits at the back, and overall it's just a nice little build that again uses a lot of parts very well. We then have this radar dish, again another Maul saber, so even if you wanted to keep the speeder built you could take this one out. I think we've been getting them in the last few advents. Last year I know the Marvel one had a few of these for like rockets, guns, so I'm not sure about Star Wars, but it's nice to get a few of these newer pieces in the advent. And again, a bit of scenery like some trees. It'd be horrible if we just got the radar dish like this, and that is what the bunker feels like. It's just missing that extra bit that perhaps a little scenic plate would have added. The next 2 days gave us the Emperor's Throne and of course the Emperor to go with it. I think the Emperor actually came first. It's the new Emperor, uses the new face with the double-sided head printing. One side he's got the bright orange eyes with sort of an angry growl, and then if you were to flip his hood around he's got a bit more of a calm, sort of as smiley as the Emperor would get, and he also comes with that new printed legs. Now I did mention on the day that torso is going to be very popular because people are going to want it, having got these in the advent. But before you spend a lot of money on the torso, if you are in the UK or anywhere else in Europe, then the Emperor is meant to be coming in the late January, early February magazine of the Lego Star Wars magazine. So do hold off. It's the new Emperor with all the new printing, and just means you can leave this woolly jumpered Emperor as is and keep him in your collection as a fun little minifigure. So hold out. Of course, we've got January's magazine first, but hopefully I can pick up a few of the magazines, as a lot of the builds are really cool. Especially right now, you can get characters like Captain Marvel, and there's even a cool blue winter hat on the Lego City magazine. But it was nice to get Palpatine, of course. We get a laser bolt and we get a red mug. It would have been really cool if we got the printed Emperor mug that not only showed up in, I think it was one of the Christmas specials, but also come up in this year's Lego Christmas shorts that they put out, and the Emperor and Vader were sort of fighting over it. So that is really fun that they really should have included. But the next model I actually built wrong on my video. because I put the slopes the wrong way around. This is actually the exact Imperial Star Destroyer. I think they use a few recolored pieces from the Super Star Destroyer MIDI build. So it's very nice to be getting an actual Lego build that came as a smaller part of a bigger set in an Advent. And I'm not too big a fan of it. I really would have preferred the Super Star Destroyer to match in with that Return of the Jedi theme and also linked to the set earlier this year. But it's a nice little model, and of course it came in the official set, so it's a nice part of it to have if you didn't buy the set. And if you did buy the set, them clear pieces that connect them to the larger model have been on the pad wall recently. Be sure to head over, pick one up, and you can even add it to your larger model. But this is one of the builds that I will be upgrading, so I'll put it to the side. And another bit, actually it's the final build really for this Advent other than the Ewok glider, the AT-ST, which honestly don't look too bad for how small the model is. There are definitely worse ways they could have gone. It's quite a nice shape, but I really just would have liked it scaled to the Endor village here. You can see it's just as high as the Endor city, and I just really would have liked it to be able to display like attacking Ewoks or some sort of brutal scene from the movie. Of course, the AT-STs are seen a bit more in the end of Return of the Jedi because they're a bit easier to fit in between the trees, but the AT-ATs play a big part, especially in Battlefront 2, which we did get the Battlefront 2 battle pack with the clones this year, so it would have been nice to have got the AT-AT as you could play or at least drive it in that game. So I will be changing this, but before we do, let's look at the last one. Probably my favourite of the two specially printed Christmas characters. The Emperor does look cool, and I definitely really wanted that minifigure, so I'm happy it's going to be in a magazine next year. But this Ewok just looks so cute. It's got white fur all over, of course, snowy, Christmas themed, and especially green jumper-like printed hat with the Christmas tree, red Christmas tree, and some snowflakes, which is really cool. They've kept just as much design and pattern as the Christmas jumpers tend to do. Of course, Palpatine's also got his lightning, but the build for the glider is also pretty cool. Minifigure scale, more or less. I guess they could have added some bigger plate pieces here to make it a bit more to what we see, but you can have him just flying across your Endor skyline. And honestly, I'll probably keep this built because it doesn't use too many special pieces. I mean, I suppose these hinge pieces here, this one piece in the middle, isn't too popular, but it is very nice to get in an Advent, and yeah, I'll probably keep it as it is. So now we've taken a look at the Advent, let's move these to the side and look at the 5 that I'm upgrading. And with the power of movie magic and a sprinkling of editing, we have the 5 builds that I will be upgrading. And I actually, just off the left of the camera, have all the 5 builds that I will be replacing. So let's waste no time. Of course, the turbo tank. What clone set did we get this year that would have been great to see in the Advent, and honestly doesn't actually use too many more pieces? Well, if you said the Coruscant Guard gunship, you would be correct. It's a cool milestone to celebrate in the Advent. Of course, it's the first recolouring of the gunship we got, and I'm unsure whether they knew that this was going to be releasing, this would be a success, until they finished the Advent, because obviously we did get a few leaks and rumours for the Advent and all the minifigures back in, I'm pretty sure it was all the way back in February. So I don't know if they would have finished this, and of course there could be problems, so they might not want to chance it, but the Coruscant gunship would have been amazing to get in the Advent. And simply because not only was it a set, it's related to Clone Wars and sort of ties in more to that year of Lego, which I think Lego could definitely do with these mini builds. I mean, pretty much all of my builds somewhat tie into something for Lego to have done better, and a lot of them do tie into this year's set. So let me know, out of these 5, which ones you'd prefer, mine or Lego's, down in the comments below. And I'll probably, for the rest of December, once the polls are gone for your favourite set of this year, run some polls and see which little Advent build you'd prefer. So I'm just going to leave these top and tail down here, and the next one is the AAT, which actually comes with a sort of switch of the theme, because this Star Destroyer is going to go from Return of the Jedi to Clone Wars, so I had to think of a Return of the Jedi set that I could make instead of this AAT. It will make a bit more sense later on, but I decided to go with an Imperial bomber. Now, we're getting a load of these ties in the Lego Star Wars magazine, and they're a bit bigger than this, so I downsized it, and with the Imperial bomber releasing January 1st, it really rounds up the year very nicely, and honestly, it's one of the best sets they've put out this year. I think it's actually made it to the final 4 of the Lego Star Wars fan vote that's, again, going on in my community feed. But the AAT, there's a poly bag in January, so they could perhaps be trying to tie in the new year. But it's Clone Wars colours, of course, for the Clone Wars anniversary. I think it really does belong in next year's Advent, and I would have much preferred to have seen another sort of spaceship or vehicle. And of course, when we get to the Star Destroyer, you'll see the other Clone Wars ship that I have planned. But first, this is probably the one that everyone's waiting for. If you clicked on the video just for this, wait no longer, because I have upgraded the Imperial Endor bunker to what I believe it should have been in the first place. You can see there's a few wonky slopes, so forgive me if it's not perfectly aligned, but this is honestly so much better than what we got in the Advent. I mean, looking at them side by side, I know which one I'd definitely be more excited for. It doesn't use too many more pieces, because obviously the base is still one piece, and I guess it's doubled this middle bit, but 2 pieces on top you can definitely do a bit bigger. So the piece count isn't drastically improved, it's just under double the pieces, and honestly it just feels so much better. It feels like an actual Advent build because of the size of it, and definitely wouldn't be one of the smaller builds. For the Imperial Star Destroyer, again, if we do end up getting a Thrawn Star Destroyer next year, it'd go great in the Advent, but a Super Star Destroyer would have gone better. And what could have beat a Super Star Destroyer? Well, cast your minds back a few months to a certain UCS set coming out, and of course, the UCS Venator would have been an amazing ship to have included. Maybe not the UCS version, but a micro version in the Advent calendar. It doesn't take up too many pieces, and actually this ship right here reminds me of one of my all-time favourite Advent calendar builds, the A-Wing, which yes, did also come in a Lego Star Wars Advent. So it's not far off what we could be getting, especially with the A-Wing having already come out. And honestly, I think if we got this by an official Lego Advent calendar, it would just make it so much better, and probably would even top the A-Wing as my favourite build. It'd be great to represent the UCS set, especially as it was so popular, and I've seen so many people buy it that don't tend to spend that much on Lego. So it's definitely something I would have preferred to the Imperial Star Destroyer. And as you can see, we've just switched the Return of the Jedi and Clone Wars builds here. So I guess it sort of makes a bit more sense to have them that way around. And last but not least, the AT-ST. Again, the scale was a bit off for me. It doesn't really match with the Endor Village, and I am sort of set on the AT-AT now. So I've built this little AT-AT, which, similar to the AT-ST, uses a few similar pieces. Probably, again, isn't too far off the piece count. I've tried to make it so that I don't just upshine Lego and go, this could be a great Advent calendar if they doubled the price. So I've tried to keep the piece counts roughly the same. I've definitely used a few more than Lego, but a few smaller pieces have been used here, and it definitely would have been, again, as I said, a better ship or vehicle to include with the Ewok Village, a little Battlefront 2 reference perhaps, and just look really cool in the place of the AT-ST. So these are the 5 vehicles that I would replace if I were to have made the Advent. Honestly, the other builds were amazing, and there's not really much more I can add. However, now we get to the fun part, as I'll begin to predict the 2024 Advent calendar. In fact, I've already built every single day and what I'd have. So again, the power of movie magic will make all of them ships disappear, and it's actually lined just out of the camera frame. I think you can actually see one of the ships here, so I'll edge that back. But we'll start with day 1. What can be day 1 for my Advent? In fact, I have also paired up my Advent days, so perhaps we'll look at the first 2. I think we should get a Skeleton Crew ship and some sort. This is a little mock I have built based on the one image of the ship we get. You can see the similarities and differences here in Lego form, but I do think with the Skeleton Crew ship rumoured to release in January, of course, Skeleton Crew has been delayed. I think Skeleton Crew was meant to be out already by the end of 2023. So we've seen the delay to the LEGO ship. It does mean that LEGO's big launch for Star Wars in the new year has stopped, and honestly, I don't think they'll be too affected. More people will just be spending a lot of money on the new LEGO Star Wars Clone Wars Battle Pack, and yeah, I don't really think it's affected LEGO all too much, but it is a shame to see, especially with Star Wars cancelling and delaying pretty much everything at some point. And of course, who better to go with that than Jude Law's character? He's got a character for the Marvels, he's got a character for Harry Potter in A Young Albus Dumbledore, so getting his character with the Advent sort of makes sense. His face and hair are probably going to be different to them characters, but as an actor, his character is very widely available in a few sets, and it makes sense to include his character over any of the other cast for the show. He seems to be the one starring in it, and just would be nice to pick up the character if they manage to release the bigger ship later this year. And especially having delayed it a few months, they'll probably have a few more extra that they've manufactured, whack them in the Advent, and I'm sure many people will be pleased. So that is day 1 and 2 of my custom Advent. And of course, 25 years of LEGO Star Wars, what ship's better to sort of represent that than the classic TIE and X-Wing? And honestly, I'd love to get these next year. They're sort of more of a filler ship, I think many people will agree, but it's the sort of ship that we can definitely get for an anniversary of LEGO, and just gives us that little original trilogy buy in the Advent without giving us too much, taking up a load of Phantom Menace sets. So that would be both day 3 and 4. And with the other shows going on this year, of course, we have Andor and probably even Bad Batch, because we don't know where that's going to take us, Mon Mothma, and a Coruscant skyline. Now, Mon Mothma is a figure we definitely need an improvement of, and with her appearance in Ahsoka, with her appearance in Andor, with her appearance in pretty much everything else, we're overdue a minifigure, and then to get that in the Advent would definitely be a really nice addition. Of course, they'll probably include a few more common minifigures. We tend to always have a Luke when a land speeder is released. I'm surprised this year we haven't got a Mandalorian, but I am very grateful for it. And to get Mon Mothma alongside the Jude Law character from Skeleton Crew would just be really great. And this skyline of Coruscant, of course, we saw it in Mando this year. I'm pretty sure we haven't seen the last of it by any means. We've got this skyscraper here, a little building, probably the Senate building, Jedi Temple, just a few random buildings plucked from Coruscant, and I wouldn't mind getting quite a few skyscrapers in an Advent, or even some specials like they used to with the mini dioramas of the micro builds of the AT-ATs and everything. Getting some skylines for Star Wars would be really cool, and hopefully something we see in the near future. Now, of course, we are missing that Christmas gonk so far, so I've actually designed my own completely new gonk this year, and it is this ice gonk. Honestly, this is one of the best gonks I have seen, using these trans blue elements, a few different shades to get a bit of detailing in where obviously they can't use different coloured pieces, and especially seeing the ice gonk sculpture in the holiday special, I think it's just stuck with me, and I really would like to see an ice gonk next year. And to go with it, Icy World, perhaps Hoth, we have the Snowspeeder. Now, the Snowspeeder was one of the first Star Wars sets to release nearly 25 years ago now, 25 years ago next year. So it's a nice homage back to them very first sets, which you'll actually see quite a bit throughout this. Of course, we have the TIE and the X-Wing. So to get the Snowspeeder with the Ice Gonk, again, it's a nice pairing. And of course, that brings us to a little Clone Wars period, where we'll of course get our first Clone Wars character in the Phase 2 shiny plain clone trooper. Of course, I have a 501st here, you're not seeing things, but I really do think they should include the Phase 2 shiny clone, and not only that, but also the B2 Super Battle Droid. And what better ships to have? Well, we're rumoured to be getting a certain Y-Wing microfighter, and we've got a few Y-Wings in the past in this smaller scale, but they've all been yellow and sort of more related to the original trilogy. So to get a Clone Wars Y-Wing would be awesome. Of course, they could do a yellow Y-Wing like we see throughout the other seasons of the Clone Wars, But at last minute, we see a blue one that Rex and Ahsoka are piloting off, the Venator. And honestly, I think that'd be really cool, especially just generally getting a Y-Wing microfighter that would go really nice alongside the UCS Venator, of course. Two very different price points, but would still look very nice together. And I have already said about the B2 battle droid. And what ship to go with the B2? Well, we could have a Vulture droid, and not only because, again, it's a very early ship that LEGO made, but it also relates to both Clone Wars and the Phantom Menace. And this is really where we kind of start to look at all our Phantom Menace builds. Of course, this is an old build for the Vulture. A few of these builds here are actually old builds that LEGO have included in either smaller sets or other advent calendars, and they're just so good that I didn't decide to change them, or I already had them lying around. So a Vulture droid would be very nice, and as I said, this brings us to our Phantom Menace section. So first up for Phantom Menace, we have the N1 Naboo Starfighter. Of course, big role in Phantom Menace. Again, an early set that LEGO made, and it's just a great advent piece. This year we got Mando's N1, so to get a recolor of it for next year is quite an easy model to do. They'll probably change it up a little to this year's because they'll want to keep it fresh, and there's a few designs that do differ to Mando's ship. But trying to keep up the pairing, which does sort of work for Phantom Menace, we have Maul's Scimitar. Now, they never really come head to head, the N1 and the Scimitar, but the N1 does have the Vulture droid before it. They do go head to head, and of course Anakin flies the N1, Maul flies the Scimitar, and they do butt heads a bit in the movie. Of course, Anakin, much younger, never actually fight, but Maul is after the boy, tries to kill him a bit, and just generally seems to run into him at every moment. When Maul arrives on his Scimitar, Anakin leaves on the N1. They do sort of relate a bit, not as much as the next two. We have the Trade Federation ship, which I would like to see a rebuild of this one we got in an advent a few years ago. But of course, the Trade Federation, you probably know what I'm pairing it up with, the Jedi Star Cruiser, because the cruiser lands on the Trade Federation ship slightly before getting blown up, and it'd be great to get the two of these again. They're cool ships, Phantom Menace's first scenes, and whilst we didn't really get sets for, I don't think we've ever got sets for either of these ships, they're very important models as they do start pretty much the whole of the Clone Wars in Phantom Menace. So very key vehicles. And next up we have a vehicle minifigure combination in the Tri-Bongo Submarine, and of course who better than Jar Jar Binks himself. Now, brothers, I do be wanting more Jar Jar, of course we do, but I would also not mind a Gungan such as, to be fair, even Boss Nass would be amazing in here. It depends what minifigures we get next year to who takes this slot, but someone relating to Otter Gunga, and could even get a young Obi-Wan Kenobi if they give us another Tri-Bongo set, or even the Queen Amidala from that set in an updated design. I don't see him doing it in the Advent, but then again, we did get Omega, so never say never. Now, the next lot, again, pertains to the Gungans more so than the minifigure, but we do have the MTT. I really hope they make this a set next year. It's well needed, especially with all the £150 playsets we're getting. We could have a playset with so many droid minifigures, and even Jar Jar, maybe one of the Gungan generals, would just be a really awesome playset to pick up. Now, Maul's in here, but this is not just any old version of Maul. This would be a Christmas jumper wearing Maul, most likely with the Sith logo on the front. And honestly, I wouldn't actually mind if they just updated the Santa Maul we got, but I think they'd keep the jumper theme. If they do give us a Santa Maul, it'd be an extra figure, sort of like the Summer Vader last year. And getting this Maul with the Sith jumper would be cool, probably the same legs as we've got here, but it would just be a really nice addition to this Advent. Now, the next pairing is another key scene from Phantom Menace, and it's Anakin's pod racer with a snowman pit droid. You've seen the Ice Gonk. Of course, this year we got a Santa pit droid. I think we need a snowman pit droid now, and I don't really know what they'd do after that, but definitely at least for next year, snowman pit droid would be really nice. And of course, Anakin's pod racer, another vital ship to Phantom Menace. It's a part of the story, quite a big part of the story, and we're also getting a diorama next year, Bunter Eve's Pod Race. So getting a few of the pod racers from the actual diorama wouldn't be half bad, and I'll definitely be making my own extra large diorama with this build later on in the year. So keep an eye out for that. I'll probably get it done closer to the diorama's release. And of course, Anakin's Pod Racer, we also need Sebulbas to go alongside it. And again, this is quite a fun design. I think this is inspired by an old Lego build. And to get this in the diorama and then to get a few ships in the actual Advent, it's very similar to the Imperial Star Destroyer we got that was in this year's Advent, but originally came in the midi-scale Super Star Destroyer. So it's not unheard of. There is quite a chance, I think, that we could get them. And here we have 23 builds, because the final one for 2024 would obviously be Master Qui-Gon in a Christmas jumper. We've got Maul with the Sith logo on his jumper. It'd be perfect if we got Qui-Gon in a green jumper to go against the red with the Jedi logo printed on. Obviously, some snowflakes and other patterns on the jumper. But to get Maul in a Sith jumper, Qui-Gon in a Jedi jumper, I just think that would be really cool. And especially if we get like a Kenobi somewhere else instead of Jar Jar, it'd be great, because you're getting the 3 minifigures you need to reenact Duel of the Fates, and could probably have a more Christmassy themed Duel of the Fates at that. So this is my prediction for the 2024 LEGO Star Wars Advent Calendar. Do let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. It's been quite a long video, but I do hope you enjoy your Christmas. If you're watching this after Christmas, I hope you had a very, very merry holiday. And if this is the last video of mine you watch before the new year, have a happy new year, and may the bricks be with you always.